Hello and welcome to this new tutorial, and in this tutorial will be a little compositing tutorial to recreate this effect using both the feedback modifier and the 2D transform. So I already made a little introductory video to the feedback modifier, so if you search on Google you may find it, so maybe search for that first. And this allows to do this kind of procedural composition and to trigger it and trick it like you want. And also in this there will be a little effect to do like this paper deformation effect to make it look like well, like it's actually on paper. So let's do that from scratch. File, new composition. Okay, so the first thing I will do is to put my composition in as a square, because the composition was a square. So let's put that in 2k square here. Okay, so now and my face is always above this fucking thing, I always forgot. And I've been told that I've been a little bit too quick on my explanation, so I will try to slow down a little bit. Let's try it. So first thing, now my composition is a square. I will create the first pattern that we saw, which will be constituted of a white background and a uniform black foreground with a little circle mask. Let's invert the mask. Okay, now we have our black circle and our white background. So the first thing I want to do is to do this kind of like repetitive pattern. So to do that, I will put my black foreground into a composition that I will call feedback pattern. Sorry for the letter that goes wide on the bottom. It's to show the shortcut, and yeah, well, that's what the way it is. So let's put a blur feedback. So it's in blur, don't ask me why. So for now it does nothing. So what I will do is add on the feedback modifier. So right click, distort 2D transform, and let's change the scale of the 2D transform. So we see that something is happening here. So it's kind of look nice, but we see some kind of lot of duplication here. Why is that? It's because my 2D transform is set as repeat. So let's put that back at transparent. And now the feedback, what it does is like every frame. So this effect is frame dependent. So you have to be sure that you have in a constant frame rate for it to work very properly, given the effect you want to do. And we have like a little fade away if we push it in the background. So we see a little delay. This is you when I move. The little delay is you to each next frame being computed with two different parameters. The first is here, so the feedback level. So each each next frame is computed with 80% intensity of the previous one. Let's put that back in like a lot, maybe not 100%, but like 99 or 97, like that. Okay. And the second parameter is the way the image is shifted and rotated. So let's keep that like this for now. So we have our base pattern to redo the previous example, and now I have to add these six little balls that we have around. So to do that, I have many different ways. So the first one, I can create a white uniform with a little circle mask, and holding shift, putting that here. Okay, then here adding a renderer, putting that there, then select these two parametric, Ctrl-Shift-G to group them, Ctrl-D to duplicate the group, and then take the group and put that here. Okay, and now if I want to do a black spot, I can select those two groups, Ctrl-Shift-G, let's call that white, duplicate, call that black. Let's put this at 45 degrees and reduce a little bit, and put a colorize as invert. Okay. So this kind of work, but first I would have to rescale each one of my different parametric here to be sure that they are on the correct size and whatever. And if I want to do some modification, it won't be very easy. It's not very convenient for me to do that this way. So I will do another way, more interesting, I would say. So to do that, I will create inside this composition a rectangle 3D layer. So the goal is here, let's visualize this composition, is to create a rectangle that will contain 9 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, 9 points. So these 9 balls, and I will use functions and procedural generation, generating techniques to have something more versatile, should I say. So first let me explain why I put the white background well on a different composition, because this composition that hold my repetitive pattern as an alpha. That's what allows the feedback to behave like that. If I were to put the white inside the composition that holds the feedback, nothing will happen because I need this alpha. So that's why I put my background outside the composition that is affected by the feedback holding the 2D transform. So this rectangle, let's start with it. Let's visualize this composition and go in 3D view here. See what it looks like. All right, let's create a little camera. Okay, camera is in front. Let's go back in our 2D views to see what we see. Nothing much. Let's deactivate the feedback for now. Okay, and let's change the size of this thing. Okay, do we see something? Yeah, thin line here. So what I want to do here is spawn point. And not point, what I will do is add a renderer, which will be a ballpoint renderer. Like this. Okay, let's augment a little bit the size of our balls. Reduce a little bit the size of the rectangle, maybe. Okay, by holding Ctrl-Shift to make it slower. All right. I have too many balls, so what I will start to change is the precision of my plane, and let's put that in 2. What that means 2 here, it's not a plane, sorry, the rectangle. What means the precision of 2 is like, is that on my rectangle, if I add tube line, okay, on my rectangle is then subdivided in 2 parts on each of its side, which create, well, 3 balls on each side. So what I want to is for my ball to be black and white, but first to have an uniform color. I don't want this kind of like a 3D shading stuff. So I will put, by selecting my ballpoint renderer, and auto-illuminate to 100%, and there it is. Now it's time to colorize this ball, and I want that 1 out of 2 be colorized in black. So what I will do on my rectangle is create an attribute modifier, which is a colorize function. And already something is happening here. So I have a different gradient. If I check on my function, I see on my colorize function, I see that it's a gradient that goes from black to white. Well, black, gray, white. So that's therefore why we have those colors here. And it's applied randomly, which means each point of my geometry got a random color from this gradient. It's a colorize function, so what I want is not a fucking random, is a fucking function. So let's click on this menu here, scrolling menu, and select a function. And there we have our little function here. And if I click on this function and click on this function tab, I see that I have now a linear function, which means like that on the UV map of my rectangle because I'm using the U texture coordinate, which is fine for us. This gradient from black to white will be applied in a linear way. So we will change this function by a square function. A square function that I will put as repeat because I will want to repeat this function, and I will want to repeat this function 4 times. Yeah, 4 times because I have 4 different faces. And what this function does actually, it takes this gradient and say, and we don't need tritone anymore, let's put that in bitone, that will be easier. And it says that one ball out of 2 will have a different color value. So this will be red and green, and then red and green, etc., etc. If I change from square, for instance, to linear, now that I did some repeat, then you see, not much, let's put the sinus. Okay, to see what's happening, let's add the precision, and you see how the colors are currently scattered around my different balls, like that. So what we want us is to have only a subdivision of 2, and let's put back the colorize into black and white. Okay, and let's put back this function in square function, and there we have it. Now we can put back the feedback, and there we have it. We can see a little thing happening here though. Oh no. No, I was hallucinating. Okay. So here we are, our first thing. So as you see, if I put that to the extreme, here I have a lot of samples which fade into nothingness because my feedback level is not infinite. And you see the time it takes for the transformation, because each new frame, the next step is then calculated. So now you have a tool to have already a lot of fun, and with this ballpoint you can also like do a ton of different stuff. And what I will do now is the paper effect. So for making the paper effect, I will go into the standard pack, textures. Where was that? So error. Okay. It was in maybe materials. No. Damn. Example image. Okay, seamless texture. And let's take the first one, bitume 002 point color. So if you want to search it more rapidly, you can into the search bar here put bitume, and there you will have it, the first one. So let's import that. Okay. So what I want to do now is to put a little effect. So let's put the bitume with a placement in all my page. So here you can see the little shortcut. So full is Control Alt 5, poof, and there it is. Let's put that in multiply, for instance. Let's add a little grayscale, and let's add a 2D transform in mirror repeat to just make it smaller. Okay. So now what I have is a little effect. Now what I want to do is that all my shape like make as if they were a little bit like printed on the paper. So to make some relief, some 3D simulation. So to do that, I will first put my bitume into a composition that I will put back into multiply. and this I can put that back in normal mode, and I will apply my 2D transform on this composition. This one I will call it bitume texture, and the main point here is to have this composition that inherit the parameter of my main composition and therefore all my sub-compositions, so I'm sure that this content will fit my current ratio. It's not like this image that has a completely different resolution and probably a different ratio if you're working in a different resolution, if your composition were in HD, for instance. Making this composition will ensure that you have a correct format for what we are going to do, which is share this content across different parts of the composition. So one will stay here as a multiply layer, put at the top, at the bottom of the composition, and another will serve as a mask to displace the 2D image. So let's do a right click here and share this element. Now on the feedback pattern here, I will have add a little 2D transform here, and this 2D transform I will call it like a paper effect. And then what I will do is create a little layer mask over this one and take my reference, this one, and do an alt drag and drop. Okay, so now nothing much happened, but now what happened if I change a little bit the parameter of my 2D transform? Okay, there you see that my 2D transform is masked by this layer mask, and therefore its intensity is driven by whatever luminance information I have in the mask, which is here, the point here. So black and the image with the 2D transform will have no effect, and white and the 2D transform will have an effect. Therefore, if I go back to my shared element here and I change the 2D transform to change the scale of my texture, here you see that my deformations are following. What we can do also to make it like more realistic in some kind of way, I'm not saying that I'm doing very realistic stuff, it will require more fine-tuning, but what we can do is add a mask over this composition. So the previous mask here is on the 2D transform, therefore it will mask its intensity using a map. And here we will put a mask over this composition that will affect the intensity of what it is displaying. So right click, mask and layer mask here, and I will do the same, take this reference and alt drag and drop it. So what it does now that my mask use this luminance information to mask my image. So let's split this viewport into two and visualize the mask. So we can see the effect on both the mask and the result image. So I'm going to put a little exposure modifier over my my mask and parameter it a little bit. Okay. Maybe like that. And maybe a little blur. Okay, let's remove this window and see the final result. Well, maybe not. And they are also here. If I put just a contrast, I'm trying. Yeah. Can add some little effect, and again that as everything is driven by your main texture, then when you change it, everything changes accordingly. What you can do also, let's reduce a little bit the feedback Okay. Then it's to use whatever texture instead of this one and put that into your shared element. Okay, Control Alt 5. And then it will automatically take whatever texture you put it in to make the deformation using is luminance or chroma information. Let's try this one. Okay, Control Alt 5, full screen. Oh, and let's put the grayscale over here. Okay, so, ouais, okay, this is ugly. So there you have it, and from here, what you can do is expose some few parameters. So, for instance, the rotation here, expose as an angle, maybe the scale factor is exposed as percentage, and so have your controller ready to do your stuff. And now, as you have also the end over the rectangle, then you can add some point. You can go in your Colorize function and change that into a sinus. And let's say right click linear loop and offsetting sinus. Let's remove the mask. And let's change a little bit the 2D transform. Okay, well, then you can try and make your own stuff here. That is for now. I hope this tutorial, small tutorial, has been useful and enjoy and have fun.